Some people start relationships with a full glass.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into a relationship with full trust. My glass is completely full.
Help us.
And if there is anything that depletes from that, you get to have some withdrawals. There'll be some sips taken out of the glass, so to speak, over time based on what might happen in the relationship, but you start off with a full glass. And some people are more like me. You start off with an empty glass and water will be added to based on what I see, sense, or experience or whatever. So I don't think either is right or wrong. They just are two very different approaches to entering into relationships, whether they be professional relationships or romantic relationships or platonic friendships. They're just two different ways of approaching, those types of relationships. You're the kind of person, you meet someone, let's go have coffee and let's hang out and let's whatever. And I'm more gonna sit back and I'm gonna watch for a little bit and then be like, okay, cool.
Facts.
Yeah, now I want to kick it, and I think
that's all facts.
Yes, so I think it's just two different approaches.
Even when you want something to work,
yes,
you can't override the evidence that's being presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is applicable even for people that are in the dating field.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and even if you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, I acknowledge it, you can't ignore what you see, perceive, and feel. You know what I mean? Because if not, you could be setting yourself up for greater disappointment down the road.
Welcome to With Love, The Chambers.
Where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. Now back to the show.
Welcome to this week's episode of With Love, The Chambers. I'm so excited to have you join us on this With Love Wednesday. I am Jamila Chambers here with the vision engineer himself, Rufus, and we are so excited to welcome you back to another episode. We can't thank you enough for all of your likes, shares, you subscribe, you hit us in the DM, you connect with us on all social media platforms. We appreciate your comments, your questions, your engagement, and we really so much appreciate it because it's one thing for us to have the conversation here, but when the conversation gets to extend into your homes, into your relationships, we hear so much feedback that we're so grateful for that you all are keeping this conversation going once the episode ends, and it just warms our hearts that you are doing that, and we are so thrilled and excited. How you feeling today, Mr. Chambers?
Feeling good about, opportunity to have another engaging conversation with you, and hope that it blesses the people. I think it may be a little messy, but let's
I was about to say we were having a meeting before the meeting.
Yep.
And with this week's conversation and this week's topic of discussion, it might be a little tight for some folks, but it's gonna be all right.
It's always all right.
It's gonna be all right.
No
this
lies
is for the grown folks, because we have found ourselves in this season of our lives really understanding Dr. Maya Angelou's words of when people show you who they are, believe them. I feel like I had heard those words for many, many years growing up, but in this season in particular, they hit a little different. And our angle on the conversation and the direction we wanted to go with that great word of wisdom when people tell you who they are, when people show you who they are, when you get to see someone's underbelly, their backside,
Yeah.
when they slip is showing, when they step in it, however you phrase it, believe them.
Yeah.
And believe them the first time.
That's the
That's
tough part.
that's the tough
That's the
part.
tough part.
But what do we do when we believe them? But what's that next step? Particularly when they are relationships we can't walk away from. Particularly when maybe those relationships are assigned to ministry callings and things that we are responsible for doing. We wanted to talk about that. Yes, I see them, but now what? Kind of angle on that conversation. And so start us off and kick us off with the things we should be looking for in those relationships. Because sometimes people don't always identify what folks are showing them. They ain't picking up what they putting down. And maybe you can start us off with talking about just in general how we don't have a culture of honor in the spaces and places we find ourselves, and how us being just in general disrespectful to each other and not showing honor in our workplaces and in ministry and in other places we find ourselves can get us in that point where we need to be paying attention to what people are showing us about themselves.
Yeah, no, you just said a whole lot.
Oh, did I?
So we're gonna just pause and breathe here. And, and this is where I want to start
If we
based
can.
on what you said. Based on what you said.
Yes.
Because you asked why. Why don't we respond initially to what we see or what we think we see?
Yes.
And I think sometimes you're going into a new relationship, be it work, be it personal, be it ministry, be it entrepreneurial. And I think a lot of times, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I enter it optimistically because I want it to work for whatever reason. As me again, and this is what I tell people, you go to my resume, you go to my LinkedIn, you're going to see all these positions like, oh, Rufus has had all these jobs and all these titles and with all these different companies. And every time I'm on a day one of a new position, I hope that it works, because part of me hoping that it works justifies the decision that I previously made to get there.
Sure.
So I think for me, I enter in those new spaces with a certain sense of optimism, and that includes the people that I am engaging with. And this is something we talk about all the time. You usually approach these new environments a little different, where I'm like, it can work for all these reasons. Or, hey, these are my 10 positive observations day one. And I think sometimes, for whatever reason, how I'm built and wired, I usually give people the benefit of the doubt for an extended period of time. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes I feel like, oh, that's my pastor's heart, or me being a fool, or me being naive, whatever you want to call it. I'll say, you know what? I saw it, but it's okay.
Sure.
It could be they're having a day, they're having a moment. Maybe it was a tough situation and they got something personal going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think when I was younger, it was different because, when I was younger, I didn't have the wisdom that I have today, or the attention to detail, or, the discernment or whatnot, so that's kind of different. But I feel like now, I think part of the lesson and part of this greater conversation audience is, even when you want something to work, you can't override the evidence that's being presented to you. And this is applicable even for people that are in the dating field. It's like, and even if you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, I acknowledge it, you can't ignore what you see, perceive, and feel. You know what I mean? Because if not, you could be setting yourself up for greater disappointment down the road. And for me, just to speak candidly, in my profession, my project management profession, I had at three different companies,
Mhm.
three supervisors that exhibited the same behavior. And in hindsight, and the truth of the matter is, I really didn't enjoy any of those behaviors at any of those companies.
Mhm.
But I chose to move into this new role, this new
Sure.
company. And in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have made the decision because that personality type was staring me in the face.
Mhm.
The first time, okay. The second time, third time, you know what I mean? So, but again, that's a lesson learned and sometimes I think we had to slow down
Mhm.
and give ourselves space and time to really process these opportunities and these environments and these cultures, that we are going into, and you and I know, that's one of my favorite things, organizational culture. And I think
Sure.
sometimes, especially at this big age, we can be discerning
Mhm.
on the environment. We can be discerning on the culture, very early on. And I think at this stage, we shouldn't ignore that. You know what I mean? But I think for you, Jamila, I just explained why, this desire to make it work. But I know with you, sometimes you take the opposite approach. I've seen you enter environments or enter in relationships being more pessimistic about what you're seeing, sensing, and feeling. And I guess for you, why is that? And where did that come from?
I think, and you and I have talked about this, just a wiring and just a different
Mm-hmm.
fundamental
Yeah.
approach. And I think
Yeah.
our listeners and viewers can relate to this analogy. Some people start relationships with a full glass.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
relationship with full trust. My
Yeah.
my glass is completely full.
Help us.
And if there is anything that depletes from that, you get to have some withdrawals. There'll be some sips taken out of the glass,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, over time based on what might happen in the relationship. But you start off with a full glass. And some people are more like me. You start off with an empty glass and water will be added
Mm-hmm.
to based
Yeah.
on what I see, sense, or experience or whatever. So I don't think either is right or wrong. They just are two very different approaches to entering into relationships, whether
Mm-hmm.
they be professional relationships or romantic relationships or platonic friendships. They're just two different ways of approaching, those types of relationships. You're the kind of person, you meet someone, let's go have coffee and let's hang out
Yeah.
and let's whatever. And I'm more gonna sit back and I'm gonna watch for a little bit and then be like, okay, cool.
Facts.
Yeah, now I want to kick it, And I think it's
Facts.
just,
That's all facts.
yes. So I think it's just two different approaches. But as you were talking, I was reflecting upon those moments when I did choose not to believe people. So I would see that things
Mm.
weren't right. I would know the relationship wasn't right, whether it was platonic friends and girlfriends that I felt like were taking advantage of me
Mm.
or not, really, really being supportive of me. We talked about in a previous episode my previous dating life and if it was some romantic relationship that just wasn't right and why stay in that, and even staying on jobs and careers. If your resume's got a lot, I'll stay someplace a long time, and kind of go through ups and
Yeah.
downs and a lot of leadership changes. But sometimes there's a staying too long,
Mm.
even in that capacity as well. And a lot of that, when I think back on it, was just the kids now would call it that pick me spirit.
Mm.
I just wanted to be accepted.
Mm. That's true.
I wanted to belong.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to feel like I was valued. So even if that meant putting a little bit of myself aside, letting you walk on my back,
Mm-hmm.
in deliverance and in church circles, we call it that doormat spirit. Even if I
Yeah.
let you walk
Yeah.
over me
Yeah.
a little bit to get there, I would put blinders up to that and I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't focus on that because at least I was in the space, in the relationship, had the
Accept it.
access, whatever I was deeming as acceptance at the time. At least that was
Yeah.
the posture. So I allowed for that to happen, and I allowed for me to see the character of people that I
Mm-hmm.
should not have been
Yeah.
in relationship with, or that shouldn't have had that level of access
Mm-hmm.
to me. I allowed that and continue to allow that because I just wanted to be,
Yeah.
accepted
That's
and
right.
in the place and part of the number and
That's
part of the
deep.
group
That's
or
deep.
whatever
Acceptance.
the case may be. And that acceptance
Mm.
and that overriding desire for acceptance at all costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though that image of acceptance was a fallacy
Mm.
because I wasn't being myself. I
Yeah.
wasn't truly showing up in the place. So they weren't accepting me. They were accepting the version of me that I had morphed myself
Yeah.
into to be palatable or to be homogenous enough in
Mm-hmm.
whatever place or space I found myself. So they were never really accepting
Yeah.
me. But I had talked myself into, I'll be, what does your girl from Coming to America say? Whatever you like.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what movie do you like? Whatever you like.
Mm-hmm.
What. Although my father always says I would have married the first one. Like my dad says that every time we watch Coming to
Mm-hmm.
America, we've been watching Coming to America 25, 30 years. I don't even know how long that movie's been out.
Yeah.
Probably closer to 40 years.
It was the
However
80s.
long
Yeah.
Coming to America has been out, my
Yeah.
dad will always say I would have married the first one.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's what he said.
That's what he says every time. But that was more the posture because it truly wasn't about being fully who I was
Mm.
or finding people that were accepting of who I was or being willing to kiss a few frogs, as they say, and
Mm.
not be in this friend group or
Yeah.
maybe not be a part of that club or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to find the people that I truly had things in common with or
That's
that
true.
truly were, in the same space and place. And so instead of when people showed me who they were, I morphed into whatever was acceptable and
Mm.
palatable
That's
instead
deep.
of,
That's deep.
having the courage really
Yeah.
to be just myself. It wasn't even be
Yeah.
somebody else, but the
Yeah.
courage to be myself, even if that meant I wasn't in the clique or
Yeah.
I was seen as the nerdy kid, the outsider,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was that I was trying to present myself, even if it was at risk of being othered, is what
Yes.
I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But part of this conversation, and I want to go back because you talk about it so much privately. I want to go back to
Mm-hmm.
this culture of honor because part of the reason people feel so comfortable in this season showing character that's unbecoming, showing in workplaces and
Yeah.
even we watch our politicians and
Oh yeah. It's
we
it's
watch our
it's it's reckless.
educators.
Yeah.
It's like, so even our leaders, our pastors
Mm-hmm.
and faith-based leaders that we expect to have a certain amount of decorum and
Mm-hmm.
respect for one another and that we expect to model and role model how you disagree and
Mm.
how you have conversations that might be tense or a little sticky. We just are, I
Reckless.
feel like, yes, just straight reckless. Like, I feel like we are in this season now of just all kinds of people just showing who they
Mm-hmm.
are. Our listeners and viewers are likely watching us and listening to us on some sort of platform where you can follow
Yeah.
and unfollow someone.
Yeah.
I am sure that someone listening, and y'all can drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
How many folks have you unfollowed
Mm. Yeah.
this past year in
Yeah.
particular? We won't go down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
that have showed you things And it's like, I can't look away now. And a lot of that showing, I think, in this environment has been around that lack of honor. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted you to unpack that culture of honor. You talk so passionately about it all the time, and how you think that that's showing up right now in this conversation of folks showing you who they are.
Yeah, I feel like, honor, decorum, respect,
Yes.
mutual respect is becoming a bit of a lost art, right now. I feel like, again, politically and socially, this polarization, part of the reason it can continue is because of a void of honor.
Yes.
If we honored one another, we couldn't stay so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It just wouldn't work
Mm-hmm.
because there would be a mutual respect. There would be a mutual interdependency there where there would be a coming together. And that's just not where we're at right now. And I think, and I don't know the research on it, but I feel like when certain behaviors and attitudes are normalized, from the very highest places in society, that normalization begins to trickle,
Mm-hmm.
throughout culture, you know, um, and we see that, and I don't even have to get into any of the
Sure.
specifics, but we see that. And then I think the flip side is the result of that is, yes, we do have some organizations, some corporations where, if there's a lack of honor, it really can become very challenging
Mm-hmm.
from some of the constituents that are there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the unfortunate part is we've lived through this,
Mm.
so it's almost like, where administrative assistants were talked to any kind of way, they were treated any kind of way,
Yes.
and they thought it was the job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these employer rights and all these
Sure.
advancements, and here we are. Some of that stuff is starting to fall back. And, I think what I've seen and what I've experienced, and again, some of this based on, our study of scripture is, when there is honor, within relationships, when there's honor within organizations, it can just create a more healthy relationship and a more healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be amazed at what a healthy environment can begin to produce.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's no different than soil. You know what I mean? You take a plant and put it in corroded soil, it may survive, but the plant is not going to be as beautiful and as healthy as if it is in healthy soil.
Sure.
And I think we need more honor, in our environments, in
Mm-hmm.
the classroom. I mean, again, you see parents,
Yes.
you see kids, you see administrators just going in. I mean, you've seen some of these things, where, students are slapping teachers in the classroom in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
And some teachers, they're going to fight back, or some teachers are going to be just appalled, or some teachers are going to be afraid. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't
Mm-hmm.
educate,
Mm-hmm.
in these environments. And, it's funny, and, I'm mentoring, these group of young men at the middle school. And it's funny, we will be literally talking about what it means to be a gentleman,
Mm-hmm.
what respect means, and we're having a conversation when they are exhibiting disrespectful behavior. It's like, wow, you guys know what it means. You know what to say, but
Sure.
you can't display it.
Sure.
It's I don't want to say it's mind-boggling, but it's like, wow, this is literally in real time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to be a gentleman, but you want to act a fool in the class. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we saying? So, I think, in our faith-based environments, again, my expectation is that we would be more skilled in having a culture of honor because of scripture,
Sure.
because of the standard that is laid out, according to scripture. Love God, love your neighbor. Again, we talked about the fruit of the Spirit a couple episodes ago. Talk about 1 Corinthians 13. What is love defined as? But that is not necessarily the case. And I think sometimes in faith circles, and this is, part of the issue is I think in some faith circles and some faith organizations, we have adopted the ways of the world where we want to be results driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, faith organizations, nonprofit organizations, for the sake of results, they're able to leave their ethic at the door sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, I need these results and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and you can act however you need to act to get the results,
Mm-hmm.
versus saying, hey, success for us is not just what we do, but how we do it.
Sure.
Back to, and you've heard me mention this, Jim
Sure.
Bostic at St. Joseph Health System. Years ago, I was working for St. Joseph Health System, a Christian healthcare provider who's been bought out. But, one of my first days there, or it may have been the interview,
Yeah.
Jim says, Rufus, you will be graded by two metrics: half of what you do and the other half how you do it. And that was just a light bulb to say, wow, there's an equal weight in my performance, how I do what I do and what I can do. And that was so edifying to my faith in that moment to say, wow, this is an organization, this is an environment where my faith, it matters as far as how I treat people, how I talk to people, how I lead people, etc. You know what I mean? But, and I think even in, relationships, again, we watch this stuff on social media, I watch these skits and, all this. And
shout out to Country Wayne.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They need to put you in an episode.
I know. Well, they need
Wayne.
Anybody
know how to find Wayne? Because your number one fan is here. And
they need some
they need
help.
a voice of reason character.
Yeah. Oh, they need more than one. No, they need more than one.
There you go.
They need a
the voice of
consortium.
reason character.
Yeah.
Let him audition.
Yeah. But you see these relationships acting themselves out, and there's such a lack of honor. You know what I mean? Between these, men and women, and you're just sitting there like, wow, how can you build a successful relationship, let alone a successful marriage and family, if there's the honor is just not there? You know what I mean? And again, I think about the future, and that's kind of why we're doing this podcast platform, right? We want to help people find their way back to functional, healthy relationships. And honor is a big part of that, we read scripture where it talks about, submitting one to another. That's honor. That's honor to say, yeah, I'm the husband, yeah, you're the wife, but we're going to submit to one another for the sake of the marriage, for the sake of the family, and for the sake of our devotion to Christ, period. You know what I mean? So now honor is it's needed, but, it's lacking, in a lot of arenas now. And, Jamila, you are working in higher education. You're interfacing with a lot of college age students.
Yes.
And then some young working professionals, right? When you think about honor, and you juxtapose that with your, job, like where is honor showing up or not showing up in that environment?
It's so interesting. Those that will be entering college this fall. So we're recording this in the winter, spring of 2026. So fall 2026 will be the class of 2030 that
crazy.
will have students entering this fall. So many of their parents are millennials,
Mm.
and maybe young Gen X, but
Mm-hmm.
millennials right now
Yeah.
are starting to have college aged
Mm.
children.
Mm.
And what's so interesting about that is I think that there is this generational conversation that is also happening because millennials, as they were growing up, were the people that were most disappointed or had that first level of disappointment around leaders. And so
Mm.
when you and I grew up, it was respect for the
Yeah.
teachers and
Yeah.
respect for your your educators, your
Yeah.
principal at the
Yeah.
school was, and you went to a Catholic school, so you had the priests and you had the nuns and you had teachers and you had law enforcement and you had
Mm.
in these institutions when you and I were children were seen as institutions that we were to respect.
Yes.
We still had the culture when you and I were young that if you drove past a church and your music was too loud, you
Mm.
turned your music down driving past the
Yes.
church, right?
Yes.
So that was we had Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were all of these institutions when you and I were young that have since had so much scrutiny because there were people that were dishonorable and not trustworthy within those institutions. And so
Mm-hmm.
the faith in those institutions has since started to erode. And now you have millennials that were coming up and saying, yeah, yeah, but I
A
remember,
lot of yeah buts.
right? And you and I also did not grow up in this social media connected world. Whereas Gen Z, Gen Alpha, so Gen Z is who's
Mm-hmm.
on campus right now, Gen Alpha's coming up right behind them. The interconnected and real time exposure to everything that's going on in the world was not something that framed
Yeah.
what you and I were exposed to. So
Mm-hmm.
this conversation around honor, right? You and I, our children, we Gen X to the core. You are going to put, and we call it an honorific on someone's name if you did not go to school with them. So we have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old,
Yeah.
and everybody's either Mr.,
Yeah.
Ms., Auntie, Uncle. Like you cannot just hit a first name
Yeah.
if I
Correct.
didn't go to school with you.
Correct.
However, they are amongst the rare group, even in elementary school, both of their teachers allowed them to call
Mm.
them by their first name. So I remember us having, a kindergartner, and the kindergarten teacher said, "You can call me by my first name." And we went and told our 5-year-old, "No, no, 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 no. You're going to
Yeah.
call her Miss
That's right.
in her first name,"
That's
right?
right.
There is no you 5.
Y'all ain't peers. Yeah.
Listen,
Stop it.
you are
Yeah.
not peers. But the young people that are now undergraduates,
Yeah.
high school they grew up in that
Yeah.
environment where no, 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 you don't have to call me Mr. You don't have to call me Ms. You don't have to call me auntie, uncle, right? Especially Black folks, everybody's auntie, uncle,
Yeah.
or Mr. Ms., right? That's it. And so there is that culture and that posture that is now so different. And so then you start talking about, especially with the work that I do, these young people transitioning into these multi-generational
Mm.
workplaces where you still have some boomers in place.
Rude awakening.
It's such a rude awakening because in some cases you have boomers in place. You certainly have elder uh, uh, Gen X, which are in their 60s, and we're in our 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that group that's definitely still in the workplace, and you have elder millennials who might have had boomer parents
Yeah.
or older Gen X siblings,
Yeah.
and so some of that presents some of that tension because you're coming out of these environments, and young people now also have a level of autonomy
Mm-hmm.
that we just
That's
didn't
true.
have.
That's true.
I have young people, and I love that for them. Like it's part of what I have had to learn, because it was so different, that I have had to learn how to thread that needle of navigating. How do you keep that posture of respect, but still allow the access and the questions that they're used to, right?
Yeah.
Because on my college campus in particular, our students can go make an appointment and meet with the president of the college.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
meet with any of the deans.
Yeah.
They can meet with any and have access. You and I, that's
That wasn't even
that's not even a
yeah,
thought.
not at all.
I can see my professor during office hours, but to say I'm going to have access to the dean of the college or the president of the college, I've shared on this platform. My family attended UC Santa Barbara for 5 decades, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Our most recent graduate was class of 2020 in my immediate family. I have never met with the chancellor.
Yeah. Just pull up.
I have never just pulled up
What you doing about such
and
and
said,
such?
"What you-"
Yeah.
and
Are
had
we divesting? No.
I have never pulled up and had access to the chancellor. That access had to come through organization with
Yeah,
other
yeah,
groups
yeah,
and the
yeah.
Black Alumni Association and other things. So I'm not saying I've never met with the chancellor, but it wasn't like,
I'm gonna just pull up.
and by the way, I referred to him as Chancellor Yang.
That's right.
His first name's Henry. I don't think I found that out
Yeah.
until he retired. He retired
Didn't need
just
to know.
because I did not need to know. His
That's
name
a
is
whole
Chancellor
thing.
Yang.
That's honor.
That's honor.
That's honor.
Right? So that's a different posture. And if you are not exposed to the difference,
Yeah.
I'm able to have some fluency because of where I work.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have the same generation in our home. And so getting exposure even through our kids. But if I didn't have that fluency and someone just rolled up on me and I have none of that context,
Yeah.
that can be seen as off-putting.
Yeah.
And that's the part where all the young adults that I interact with, I try to get them to understand that that's great to have the nurturing environments and the support where you find it. But the rest of the world isn't necessarily like that.
That's true.
So you have to find those relationships where you can and need to know how to code switch. And in this instance, is generational code switching.
Yeah.
In between.
It's critical.
And
it's
navigating through, all of those things. Yeah. Wow, this has already been a powerful conversation. We're going to pause for just a moment this week and invite you to join us again next week as we continue this conversation about when folks show you who they are, believe them. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, share this episode with someone who needs to have part 1 of this discussion already in their thoughts, in their minds, and in their spirit as they continue throughout the week. As always, we appreciate your partnership and we thank you for tuning into this week's episode of With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.cough.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or 2. As always, thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next time. With Love, The Chambers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, The Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with Love, The Chambers.